Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the morning sessions and want to start off by saying a hello to all of you that are joining us live stream and on YouTube. Welcome. Remember that this evening's program will take place at the Shell. You can literally, yes, the Shell. You can literally see it if you're staying in this hotel or any of the others that are on the bay here. You can literally see it from your windows. So make sure that you make note of that. This next fireside chat brings together two visionary leaders to talk about equity, access, and the future of higher education. Moderating is Dr. Chris Howard, Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Arizona State University. Yes, let's give it up to ASU. And joining him is Dr. Michael Lomax, President and CEO of UNCF. Yes, who has spent decades championing educational opportunity for Black students and HBCUs. Let's welcome them both to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all. Great. We've got 22.
Are they alive out there? I don't hear them.
Rule number one, do not clap louder for Michael than for me. I wore a tie for you. This man did not. So
Hey,
let's
look,
get it started.
I was on at 7 a.m. this morning in the HBCU convening, and I had to be the warm-up act for Colin Kaepernick. I deserve support.
Here's the lie. Here's the lie. Michael Lomax is always on, so he is never off. So we got 22 minutes and 23 seconds. This is like a James Brown concert. It's going to be tight and good and funky. So let's go there and get
Well,
down
I feel
to it.
good.
And you look good, too,
All right,
man.
you do too, brother. All
At
right,
one
let's go.
point, I'm going to ask him a question. But first off, I'm going to say thank you to all the HBCUs out there, people that have supported HBCUs. Let me say this. I would not exist. My mom and dad went to Prairie View A&M. Sorry for the Grambling folks out there and the Texas Southern people out there. We'll fight later on. So my mom and dad met at Prairie View A&M, so I would not exist. And my brother, who went to Baylor, I went to the Air Force Academy. Both my son's godfathers are Morehouse men, and one of the godmothers is a Spelman woman. So thank you in advance for what you've done for HBCUs and United Negro College Fund. Let's start this way, though, Michael. I had the good pleasure of getting a call from Deb Quazzo and calling you. She said, hey, we want to give him this Lifetime Achievement Award. I was in North Carolina at the time. I called you up and I said, hey, Michael, my brother from another mother, we're going to give you this award. You got pretty emotional. What does this Lifetime Achievement Award mean to you, Michael?
Well, I hope it doesn't mean an end to my lifetime. But, you know, at UNCF, we say thank you to people all of the time. We have an annual campaign which does the fundraising the old-fashioned way. We have special events, and we put on about 80 events, 80, during the course of a year. And March is our big year. We call it March Madness. We had 13 events, 7,000 people, raised $8.3 million in March alone. And the hook, give us a hand, come on, that's hard work. And we closed the books on raising over $100 million on March 31st. But we do that. We get people to step up and make a difference by always remembering to recognize and reward. And so we do a lot of recognitions, a lot of rewards, and a lot of thank yous. And I'm always struck by how appreciative people are when they are recognized and they are rewarded for the work that they do when it's important work. So I have to say that I do more of that than receive it, but I want to say to ASU and GSV, I want to say thank you, because ingratitude is the worst of all sins, and I am deeply grateful for this recognition. And I'm deeply grateful for it because I've been on a journey for over half a century now as an educator, trying to proselytize in behalf of a community that hasn't always gotten the respect and the regard that it's due, and that is historically black colleges and universities. I know that they are a powerful educational community, and I felt like, to be honest with you, to have ASU, come on, you guys, give me some feedback on this, to have ASU and Michael Crow, who I have been kind of going in a dance with because I started this work at UNCF when he was, I think, 21 years ago, earlier in the work with ASU. And I know how relentless he is in behalf of the work that he's trying to do to change, we're not trying to, that he is doing, that now ASU is doing so powerfully, to transform the way we do education in America. That to get recognized by my peer, my brother, Michael Crow, who is, I'm the nice guy, easy to go, but that really means a lot. So I want to say, without humor, but with honesty, how deeply appreciative I am and how important it is for the work that UNCF is doing, for the work that HBCUs are doing, to get the recognition and the acknowledgement from our peers that we're making a difference. So thank you.
You're most welcome. Congratulations again. Congratulations again on a job well done, and as it goes, no good deed goes unpunished. So we need to keep going and moving forward. But let's go backwards a little bit before we go forward, Michael.
Okay.
Michael's a bit of a superhero. I like to say maybe Thor, maybe Captain America. I'm the Black Panther, so you can't have that one. You can't have that one. But let's talk a little bit about your origin story in all seriousness. You've had an amazing journey for generations, but can you just tell folks here kind of how you got here? Let's kind of unpack your origin story, Michael.
Yeah, so it's wonderful to be in San Diego. I tell people that I think of San Diego as a pit stop between Los Angeles and Mexico. Having grown up in LA, we would only stop in San Diego when we needed to go to the bathroom before we continued on the long trip down to Ensenada. But I'm born in LA after World War II, and my parents owned a small newspaper, the Los Angeles Tribune. My mom was the editor. That meant that she wrote almost all 24 pages of that tabloid every week. My father ran the production company, and that newspaper, the Tribune, was really a hell-raising newspaper in Southern California. And we were fighting for good jobs, fighting against and shining a bright light on issues of police brutality and inequity in the Los Angeles community. My mom also was the mother of 6 kids. While she was writing that newspaper, she was also producing 6 children. Well, my mom and my dad were producing the 6 kids. But in 1956, when the bus boycott occurred in Montgomery, Alabama, my mother said that this is the story of my career. And so she decided to take a week off, fly to Montgomery. She covered the bus boycott, met Dr. King, met Mrs. King, met Rosa Parks, met all those folks, came back and was changed as a human being. She said that she could not do journalism from Los Angeles about the South without continuing to go to the South. My parents divorced. In 1961, she decided to take all 6 kids, they shut down the paper, take all 6 kids to Alabama. Car broke down, had to take a bus from Blythe, California. Anybody here from California, from Blythe, which is right on the border, all the way into the South, and we encountered segregation and all of those ills of the period. And a week after we started that trip in that Greyhound bus, we arrived in a small town 29 miles from Montgomery, Alabama, called Tuskegee. And we got off that bus in the morning, and greeting us was a professor from Tuskegee Institute. And that was my first encounter with a historically black college. And a warm bed, a great meal, and a loving community, 29 miles from the center of the civil rights movement. Spent 6 months there. And for the next 5 years, my mom would go in and out of the South writing, and I stayed in Los Angeles to go to high school. In 1964, she said, if you'll come back with me again, I'll send you to prep school. Well, she wasn't telling the truth. She sent me to Morehouse. And at 16, before I graduated from high school, I was a freshman at Morehouse. And that first trip, I met the loving community of black colleges. On the trip to Morehouse, I learned the exacting academic community of a historically black college, and I had the great good fortune to get one of the great educations, to have the greatest educational opportunity of my lifetime.
Was President Mays your president?
Dr. Benjamin Mays was the president, and over the 4 years from 1964 to 1968, I matriculated. And as I learned in the classroom, I also learned about activism in the community. And weeks before graduation in '68, April the 4th, Dr. King was assassinated, and his funeral was held on our college campus. And that experience of the world coming to our campus to pay homage to a great leader, I made a commitment as I looked down into his casket and recognized that this man had given his life so that my generation could have different kinds of lives, that whatever I did, whatever I would do with my life, it couldn't just be about earning a good living, supporting a family. It had to be about making real change in the world. And so I will close the story by saying that the journey I've been on since 1969, when I started teaching freshman composition at Morehouse College, I have been on a journey to try to repay Martin King for the contribution he made to the world.
Hear, hear. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. If you're sensing that Michael's getting a little emotional, he is, and I am, and this is powerful, this is compelling. I was born in 1969, so I'm not calling you old. I'm just saying that 1969 was a good year. That's all.
It was a great year, brother.
Saying. So, okay, so let's run it up to the present in the sense that activism, social justice, equity, race, how are you reconciling and dealing with those ideas in 2025? Where does technology play into that vision of activism and justice right now?
Well, you know, what we've seen, and you can't talk about, there are certain words we can't use anymore, and we're not supposed to say injustice, we're not supposed to say inequity, we're not supposed to say diversity. You know, there are a lot of things we're not supposed to say, but that doesn't mean they still don't exist in the world. And I believe, and this is something that Chris and I were talking about backstage, because I was asking, why did you choose education? I think both of us agree that it is an imperfect way of making change in the world, but it is among the best ways to elevate humanity, to give people an opportunity, and to allow them to have the resources that they need to change their own lives, their families' lives and their communities, and hopefully to change the world. So we're doing this work because all of those inequities and inequalities exist. HBCUs, which are the educational institutions I believe in deeply and believe they can make a big difference, you know, are doing great work. They're educating hundreds of thousands of students every year. They're doing it with inadequate resources, but they are committed to that mission. What I think the moment provides us with an opportunity to do is to accelerate that by embracing technology. And I was in a you all missed this morning with Colin Kaepernick, where I was, you know, the opening act, and he talked about he said I had listened to Sam Altman last week talk about the power and importance of AI, and then hear Colin Kaepernick say just about the same thing. Sam said, people are afraid of AI. It is potentially the most democratizing technology. It can close those gaps, or it can widen them.
Yes.
But one way or the other, it's going to have an impact. And Sam said, what you got to do is just jump in there and start using it.
Right.
Colin Kaepernick says the same thing. He says, dive in there and start using it. And I think what I heard today and what I'm going to take back to the work I do is you don't have to know everything to start doing something with the technology and beginning to harness it to close those gaps, to give young people who are hungry for something and don't know what they're hungry for, to give them exciting educational opportunity that the technology can provide. You all are doing virtual reality. You're doing all kinds of exciting things that I believe are the new pedagogies of the 21st century that can turn on these young kids who otherwise will not be learning and building their own capability. And if we harness it and start using it, we can make a huge difference and have scaled impact across all of the differences that we live through.
Wonderfully said, and we can do it in a way that's unique, avant-garde, and different. You think about black people taking classical music and gospel music and creating jazz. You think about black people taking, when they took the trombones and the trumpets out of the classroom, getting two turntables and coming up with things like hip-hop. People like Kendrick Lamar and Drake, these later or earlier artists, like Run DMC is here, DMC is here as well. And we've always been able as a people to improvise, to create something that's not just special for America, but special for the world. And why would AI and technology be any different? We got 6 minutes on the
clock. All right, I got you. This is the speed round.
So I got two things. So I grew up, you all of a certain age, watching Lou Rawls' United Negro College Fund, and I always remember a mind is a terrible thing to waste, but I didn't give the full motto of the United Negro College Fund. Please remind us, UNCF, it's not just a mind is a terrible thing to waste,
but a wonderful thing to invest in.
Which is beautiful.
And, you know, we've been around 80 years old. I was not there at the founding. I missed out on that. But for 80 years ago, we created this organization to be a united fundraising campaign. We enlisted the business community. John D. Rockefeller led the first campaign in 1944 at the end of World War II, raised $750,000, equivalent of $10 million in today's dollars. Over the 81 years since then, we have raised over $6 billion, and we've helped over 600,000 students earn college degrees. And importantly, we continue to do the work with 100 institutions. And so you know, what is our big bet going forward? Our big bet is that historically black colleges, there are 100 of them, if we will work together, and we are, the United Negro College Fund, which represents the private institutions, is working in partnership with the public institutions led by the Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We have a new partner, Ed Advancement, who is helping us with data and technology and some of the other things that will be the glue that will bind us. But think about this. There are 300,000 students at 100 institutions. They enroll they enroll about 10% of all black college students in America. And they produce about 15% of all of the tech STEM scholars that we produce annually. But if you think about them, they're not a national group of institutions, they're a regional group of institutions. There are 19 of them across largely the Southeast and the Southwest, and the District of Columbia. And on average, they are producing 25% of all the black college graduates in those communities. They are having $16.5 billion in economic impact in those communities. They hire 130,000 people. So they are the anchors of all those black communities that range from Hawkins, Texas, which I challenge you to find on the map, to Atlanta, Georgia, to Washington, D.C., where 70% of all the black people who earn a college degree go to two institutions, Howard and the University of the District of Columbia. So they are, what we say, punching above their weight. Now, if we can, on that kind of largely in-person system of education, bring in technology, infuse technology into that opportunity, we can do so much more, and we can reach so many more people. And as opposed to being thought of as the laggards of higher education, as institutions that are under-resourced, we will be able to leverage our locations, the trust that the community has in us, the fervor that they have about getting a great education, and we can have much more impact. You know, when we founded black colleges over 150 years ago, the freed men and women who had been treated as property were hungry for education. They first and foremost wanted to get the ability to read the Bible and interpret it for themselves, so that they would not only hear servants obey thy master, but they would know who their greater master was. And they would not be property, they would be spiritual. You can give me a hand, give them a hand, give them a hand. They obviously wanted to build communities, they wanted to build homes. They wanted to build wealth. They wanted to capture the wealth of their labor and improve their labor. And so some of our greatest institutions like Tuskegee were work schools. You go to Tuskegee and you will see buildings that were built by the students, bricks that they made, and they created a great institution. So work was a part of this. They were on a journey to be able to gain more from that. But the other thing, and this is really important for right now, is they were preparing for engaged citizenship. And so what I would say to us, all of us here, we want to do this, bring education and technology together so that we can be stronger economically and produce greater outcomes. But don't forget that education is the source of values. It's the strength and foundation of our democracy. And so we have to do all of those things in concert. Chris Howard.
Thank you, man. Powerful. So as we close this out, I would say two things in this imperfect democracy. You know, Lincoln said that the democracy is not yet perfected. James Madison, one of our founding fathers, flawed but a brilliant man, said the presupposition about a democracy or democratic republic is an informed citizenry, as you just said. Last thing is that as great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren of enslaved people, my great-great-grandfather Amos Howard was an enslaved man out of Texas. Michael's enslaved people were out of Waller County. in Texas where Prairie View A&M is. America's come a long way, and I know you've done a lot, but I know of all the people that are proud of you, your ancestors are proud of you as well. Thank you all very much and have a great day.
Thank you.
That's right. We are our ancestors' wildest dreams. Up next is a powerful conversation on our most pressing issue of our time, how we reimagine the American workforce in the face of rapid change and disruption. Leading the discussion is Jean-Claude Brizard, President and CEO of Digital Promise Global. He's joined by two trailblazers, Byron August, CEO of and co-founder of Opportunity at Work, and Michelle Rhee, partner at Equal Opportunity Ventures. Let's give them all a round of applause, please.
Good afternoon. Welcome, welcome. Two dynamic individuals we have this afternoon. We have an amazing discussion. The topic, of course, today is reimagining the American workforce, turning crisis into opportunity. Why don't we start there, maybe with you, Michelle. So our topic, again, on crisis and opportunity, on reinventing the American the workforce. What's the crisis and what is the opportunity?
So what I think is interesting about this is that there's so many data points that in and of themselves make a great point for the fact that we're in the midst of an employment crisis, right? So from the fact that, you know, in 2022, 50 million adults changed careers and changed jobs, to the fact that just last month, there was a pretty significant uptick in job creation, and yet there was also an uptick in unemployment, right? So any of that combined with the things that, you know, that show the data that shows that there's, you know, more than 7 million people that are unemployed, but more jobs than that open. But what I think is interesting and what I think we might be missing in this is the fact that I think young people fundamentally are thinking about work in a wildly different way. And so we have a portfolio company called JobGet, and they run a platform for hourly wage workers. And one of the things that they've found is that people want to know, all right, what jobs are available where I can work these particular hours for this amount of pay, right? They care less about what the job is, and they just want to make enough money to pay their rent and eat. And it's a very different mindset than we had. So I think that honestly might be one of the crises that we're not anticipating right now. And in terms of the opportunity, I actually think that because AI has sort of come in, and within K-12 education, higher ed, and amongst employers, everyone is having this like holy crap moment that can maybe spark, you know, people to completely rethink how we are training new workers.
You know, Michelle, I've done these talks with, and I've leveraged Andrew McAfee, the former MIT economist, and I show educators videos of him talking about this idea of they're coming for our jobs. And I ask educators, are you excited or terrified? Usually are terrified when they see that kind of example. Thank you. Byron.
Yeah, so why is this a crisis? As Michelle pointed out, the immediate data on employment actually is pretty good. But I think there is something of a crisis underway, which has to do with three things. First of all, the role of work generationally, I think, has changed. But I think it's changed for reasons that people aren't talking about maybe quite as much, which is that you know, work, your earnings on an ongoing basis, used to be able to cover what a middle-class life felt like. But in fact, the cost of many things we associate with the middle-class life, the cost of higher education, the cost of healthcare, the cost of housing especially, has made it so that I think in many cities, for example, across the country, you actually need to have generational wealth to be able to get those markers of a middle-class life, no matter how hard you're working, and that's a new thing. And so the generation that's retiring has had a very different experience than the one that's coming into the labor market. A second thing, we talked about AI, and of course technology has been a constant. And there's, I don't think anyone who tells you they know exactly what's going to happen with AI really knows that. But it's very much the case that certain things that we consider to be very kind of human sort of attributes, AI is able to do basically because it's learned from humans. It's learned from all the humans. And so there's that big uncertainty. But the third element of the crisis, and actually is part of the opportunity as well, is that over the last 30, 40 years, we've actually changed the way people get jobs, and we've inserted this idea that you have to have a bachelor's degree to get a skilled middle-class job. Whereas to the point where we have jobs where most of the people doing them still don't have bachelor's degree, like say admin assistant, but most of the jobs that are newly posted say you need to have a degree. So this paper ceiling has actually divided employers from so much of the talent, and it's actually stopped so many people, 70 million Americans who don't have bachelor's degrees but are skilled through alternative routes, STARS, stopping them from actually working, learning, and earning to their full potential. So that's a huge problem, but it's also an opportunity in that if we actually unlock this other half of our talent pool in this country, and we use AI, for example, to augment that skill set and to help those journeys, those pathways, we actually have a chance to have something like a renaissance, I think, in work. But that's really up to us, because it really is a crisis if we keep going the way we're going, and it really is an opportunity if we change direction.
I know, Byron, you're actually fixing all of that, so we'll come back to that in a second. So we're talking about reimagining the American workforce, but we're still very much in K-12 struggling with basic math and reading proficiency. And as we know, AI is really advancing very, very quickly and changing the workforce very, very quickly. How do we make sure people, both students and workers, have the skills and opportunities they need to stay stable and move up economically? There's a reason why I'm saying this. When you look at NAEP scores, for example, one standard deviation in mathematics can make the difference between economic outcome and being incarcerated, pregnancies, teenage years, etc. One standard deviation in the math outcome for 8th grade students on the NAEP scores can make that kind of a difference. How do we address that need? We're struggling with basic proficiencies. Michelle?
Well, I mean, the workforce is changing so quickly. Just a quick anecdote. So my husband and I moved into this fancy apartment building in Los Angeles a few years ago. And when we moved in, we quickly noticed that we were the oldest people in this building by like ×2. And I said to my husband, I was like, we can barely afford this place. Like, what are all these 20-something-year-olds doing that they can live in this apartment building? And so Kevin being Kevin, he's like, I'm gonna find out. So for 2 weeks, he gathered all the data. Like every time he was in the lobby or the elevator, right? He's like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he comes back at the end of 2 weeks and he's like, they are content creators, they're in cannabis, they're in crypto, they're influencers, all these things that none of them required a college degree. I'm pretty sure all of their parents were very worried as they were leaving the house about whether or not they could make a living doing this. And so I just think that it speaks to like having to move away from this old school paradigm that, you know, in K to 16, we're gonna, you know, prepare kids to do certain jobs and then they're gonna go off and do them. Because if we take that model, by the time they graduate, like those jobs may have changed, they might not be there anymore. And so I think we need to focus more on sort of the fundamentals, right? Obviously, the fact that they need sort of, you know, really solid reading and math skills is one thing, but what are the other sort of fundamental and foundational skills that young people need to be successful in the face of a changing workforce?
I mean, I think it's public education and early education more generally is obviously incredibly important, and I think we look away from that at our peril. So I don't want anything we say on this panel to imply that like a really strong K-12 system isn't very, very important. That said, there are many more ways to learn than there ever have been. And I think what's missing from the discussion a lot of times is we think, when we think about skills, we think about it just in terms of formal education. Whereas in fact, most skills come from working on the job. So if people put down their forks for a second, I mean, I'd love you to raise your hands if, like, in two groups. One would be if you think for the value you add in your job today, your own work, your contribution, that most of it comes from the skills you gained in school. That would be the first group. And the second would be that most of your skills come from the skills you've gained on the job, by learning, by doing, by mentoring. All right, got it? First group, whose contribution is mainly from the skills they learned at school? Raise your hand. Okay, thank you, thank you. How about on the job? Okay, so that looked like about 95%, a little more than 95% on the job. The thing to remember is that's true not just of the people in this room, but that's true of people in call centers, that's true of people in warehouses, that's true of people doing all sorts of jobs that we very often, very loosely refer to as unskilled jobs. They're not unskilled jobs, they're low-paid jobs. And one of the things at Opportunity at Work, the core of our insights is with this huge skills mobility data model of the entire economy, you can see that actually people move based on their skills, but some people are blocked from those same movements. If you're a second-level help desk worker solving pretty complex problems for customers, you have got the skills to be a business-to-business salesperson, and that job pays twice as much. But if you don't have a bachelor's degree, even though you have those skills, you will be blocked from making that transition, even though that job is in demand. So we can actually, if we take seriously, people talk a lot about meritocracy. Meritocracy is not stopping half the people from trying before you know what their skills are. So having a skills-first approach can actually accomplish far more than people realize, far more in terms of the talent equation, far more in terms of skills development, far more in terms of outcomes that are more equitable. Because if you can do the job, you should be able to get the job. And if you learn something valuable, you should be able to earn more, regardless of where you got those skills. With that principle, we can make this work much better.
So you both are making an argument, I think, for the ideas of durable skills. We know that so many of those skills beget success in life. And you're making a really good argument for micro-credentials, right? Ways of credentialing people beyond the traditional. We know from research and from experience, very few people now have a linear scaffolded path to success, right? If I were to ask you, for example, anyone in the audience, what you're doing now, was that your dream 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago? We meander. So knowing that, for example, and as technology really reshapes industries and traditional career paths, how do we redesign workforce development to not just respond to disruption, but to anticipate it and create real pathways for opportunities for all people?
Well, I mean, I think we can't fully anticipate what the new jobs are, to the point that Michelle made earlier. I think we can say with great certainty that the ability to listen and communicate and have empathy and to be able to sort of put the pieces together, and also the conscientiousness and care with which, like, people who are great at any job like go about it. These are things that really are going to matter no matter what. And I think again, this is an area of uncertainty, but the early evidence suggests that there's a tremendous complementarity between those qualities in a person and AI agents. And a lot of what we need to do, though, is to make sure that the system actually works in a way that enables people to move in that way. People are inherently curious. I mean, it's so hard to get a child to stop being curious, to stop asking questions, and yet we manage to have systems that do it. Most of innovation in this country, in this world, comes not from people in white lab coats coming up with eureka inventions. It comes from people working at the front line of very ordinary jobs, like noticing a way to do it slightly better and spreading the word, and that being developed into a system. That is actually how progress is being made in the world today, and yet our systems tend not to reflect that. Our narratives tend not to reflect that. And so in a way, we need to do less. We need to stop spending billions of dollars to stop people from trying and to blind ourselves to their skills. We need to take seriously the reality that You don't say you have a bachelor's degree, here's the job. You then want to assess skills and qualities. Well, why can't you do that for everyone? We have a heuristic that was developed in the early 2000s when all you had was keyword search filters. Now we have big data, now we have AI. There's absolutely no reason why we should limit ourselves to these bogus screens. And so when we talk about tearing the paper ceiling and this Tear the Paper Ceiling campaign and coalition, we're not talking about being anti-college. We're not talking about being anti-degrees. College can be an amazing bridge to opportunity. It is for millions of people, and it should be for many millions more. But if we make it a drawbridge that we pull up and no one else can get across it if they don't have that degree, that is a huge problem, and it's a problem we've inflicted on ourselves. And if we undo that, then I think the possibilities are actually pretty great.
I think to Byron's point, you know, for a long time, I think there were certain classifications of jobs that people assumed, well, like you have to have a degree for that. And about 4 years ago, I co-founded a startup called Build Within with my co-founder Jimena here, which is focused on apprenticeships. And when we started Build Within and started talking with employers about the apprenticeship model, there was just this assumption of like, oh, that's for the trades and construction. And we were trying to flip that. And now, today, Build Within is working with employers across the country to train, you know, nursing assistants, teachers, project managers, software engineers, right, through the apprenticeship model. And this is something that as educators we've known forever, right? The notion that you're going to learn, and then you're going to get a job and do, as opposed to you learn something, you go apply it the next day, you try it, what worked, what didn't work, like that is how true learning happens. And so the model has to shift towards like actually you are learning and doing simultaneously, and that is what's going to create the best workers.
We need to create systems that really respond to the ways in which we actually learn and finding ways for credentializing what we actually are learning. So Michelle, now you're in venture, right? So what other kinds of innovations and initiatives you're seeing, maybe you're investing in, that really are supporting these kinds of ideas?
So one of the investments that we've made that we're most excited about is a company called Stepful. And basically what Stepful did was they took what traditionally was a 2-year-long sort of process to train people in phlebotomy, and they condensed it into 4 months. The vast majority of that being you know, virtual and asynchronous, the last mile kind of as an externship. And it's been, I mean, unbelievable. One, the people who go through these trainings are just incredibly motivated, mostly working, you know, coming from service jobs. And then they're becoming these phlebotomists. But what Stepful has figured out that I think a lot of other similar type models haven't is that they have such strong relationships with employers. So every hospital, every clinic, every doctor's office is in need of the phlebotomist. So as soon as these people graduate from the program, they're being snapped up by these employers, right? Which is key to this kind of model. And so what we're trying to figure out is what are the other verticals and what are the other roles where a Stepful type model could be utilized, and we're super interested in people who are building in those spaces.
Amazing. So Byron, let's get perhaps more specific into your work as well. So you have this amazing structure and opportunities of work called STARS, right? Which I think is workers scale through alternative routes, right? So you've been talking a lot about this. We know that many employers rely on traditional credentials. So what big trends are you seeing? I believe STARS further behind will get us a chance to really bridge the gap that you've been seeing in your work.
Yeah, so STARS was who I mentioned, skilled through alternative routes. These are 70 million American workers. So when you think about a picture of who the American middle class is, it's actually stars. The median worker is a star. Over half of white workers are stars. And this idea that a bachelor's degree is required to start a career in skilled work is incredibly disadvantageous to many, many people, and it's not equally distributed. It's concentrated in certain communities. In rural America, it's like an absolute disaster. And if I can go, and I've done this in many roles, I've gone to many cities, and downtown I'll be with businesses who are saying, we can't find the skills to do these jobs. And then in any neighborhood in the city, There'll be people who can do it. I mean, he said, I know what I can do, but no one will give me a chance. And people who think, well, or maybe I don't have anything to offer because I've been rejected 4 times, but they haven't been rejected 4 times. They've been screened out. Their skills haven't been evaluated and found wanting. And we have done these pilots with employers, the same employers who they thought rejected them, hired them when they had a chance to look at their skills directly. So what we are doing in this Tear the Paper Ceiling campaign, which you'll see, it's had over 6 billion views. It's on television, digital, billboards, park benches, everything. It's stars telling the story of their skills, both to employers and to others. And it's very inspiring, it's very powerful, but it's, in a sense, it's also a Trojan horse for this coalition, which is now 80 companies and entities, big platforms like Indeed and Workday and LinkedIn and Jobcase and many others. So basically, we talk about solving this problem together and on purpose. Anyone in this room can do something to solve this problem on purpose. If you go back to your organization and look at your jobs descriptions and ask those that have a bachelor's degree requirement, a generic one. I'm not talking about you need to be you have a medical degree to do surgery. I'm talking about you need a bachelor's degree of any kind to do sales or be in management or to be a project manager, any of these things, and ask yourself, why is that there? And remove it. And actually ask yourself, where can we source talent that are stars? And also, within your own company, very often, even if someone can get into the company, they can't get promoted if they don't have certain educational credentials, even if you can see they can do the job. So anyone can get rid of those things within their company and build a better pipeline there. But we also believe there's incredible power in working together, whether it's through the talent technology platforms. There's so many problems to solve along the way. People don't know what jobs are available. People don't know how their skills translate. They don't know how to communicate in terms of skills. Employers don't know how to put out a signal saying, we want this in terms of skills rather than in terms of what specific educational pathway. So there's so many problems to solve. And one thing, if you're interested, if you see a role for your institution or for yourself, I would encourage you to go to tearthepaperceiling.org, which is the movement website, or Opportunity Works LinkedIn. We have an event coming up April 24th called State of the Paper Ceiling, where we take stock of what's actually happened, which is we've arrested this careening disaster, but now we need to move the needle back in the other direction. And that would be a great opportunity to find out what role you can play to tear the paper ceiling.
Thank you for your work. I mean, you're going to help us fix this, but we know it's a bottom-up and top-down.
It's all of us.
It's all of us. Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for everything you're doing. Going back to this idea of even doable skills or non-academic skills, I did an experiment when I joined my organization 4 years ago. I had my leadership team write down the 3 things that made them successful, and they're all highly credentialed, traditional credentialed people. None listed their academic credential from Harvard, MIT, et cetera. They all talked about these doable skills, which beget success. So I would argue we've got to really figure out how to do this. We also know, for example, that ETS, Carnegie Foundation, others are trying to really change the way we think about credentialing. So really thank you. So we have a minute left. Why don't we do this? If you could leave us with one bold idea or action we should take right now to turn this moment of disruption into lasting opportunities in the American workforce, what would that be?
I've already talked about the actions. I wouldn't say one big action for people in this room. I would say one small action, but a real one, like in your institution. Mentor someone, remove a barrier, explore a new source of talent. Any of those things can make a difference if we all do them.
I 100% agree with that. As a side gig, my husband and I own restaurants now, Fix and Soul Kitchen.
Great restaurants.
And after the first few years of like literally using all of these recruiting agencies to hire our managers and having like 0 success, we decided that we were going to eat our own dog food and put in place an apprenticeship program. And we identified people, young people who were serving or bartending or hosting, and we knew that they had great work ethics. We knew that they had, they were mission aligned with us, right? All those sorts of things. And we're like, let's teach them some of the skills that otherwise they wouldn't have access to. And they are by far right now our most successful like early managers. So I would 100% agree with Byron, like you gotta look within and you gotta cultivate the talent.
Michelle and Byron, thank you.
We're living in transformative times, and our high schools must rise to meet the occasion. This next fireside chat brings together two bold leaders who have been at the forefront of rethinking what education can and should be. Please welcome Ruslan Ali, co-founder and CEO of QX Institute. I said that backwards, XQ Institute. I know the people in the audience that know, they're like, oh my goodness, she said it backwards. And Randy Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers.
So I love this format of the notion of you and I sitting together and either having a cup of coffee or a glass of wine.
Is
maybe
this wine or
sometimes both. This is water. If I were to open it, I'd make a mess. And the insights that others might glean.
I just made a mess
It's
of you,
really
I'm
not,
sorry.
I figured. The insights others might glean if they were to witness some of those conversations. And what a gift of ASU to present that, and GSV, Deb Quazzo in particular, to present that opportunity for us.
And I want to say, I want to just echo what Ruslan said, because we have known each other for probably an eternity. You don't look older.
Neither do you, my dear.
So,
But at least 30 years?
yeah, at least 30 years. And through lots of different iterations of reform, or this is the thing. It's kind of like the tablets from, from Moses, the 10 Commandments. And I think that what I've really appreciated in this iteration of our relationship is just how freaking smart and strategic you are. And I often, and so I'm going to ask Ruslan the question that we talk about privately, which is, in this moment, which frankly is one that potentially erases 60 years of things that we both have fought for. What are you thinking? How are you thinking about, on some levels, both hope and fear?
It is exactly that. It is both hope and fear. It's not binary. Right? We have an opportunity to innovate in ways that we haven't in my lifetime, and certainly in our relationship. Technology, why we are here in this room with this magnificent set of people. Technology has finally caught up with both the moral vision, which is why I've stepped into this work, why you've stepped into this work, the policy vision, what we know the ecosystem of everything from as local to state and federal needs to look like to support innovation, the best practices and the data and research and accountability systems that tell us what works, the ability to leapfrog how we think about personalized learning in the most personalized sense, to think about fair assessments for both students and teachers that will ensure we have the best of our teachers before the students that need and depend the most on public education. States have historically, and till now, as most of us in this room know, been the arbiters of how we deliver public education, right? 90 to 92 cents on the dollar.
All just hear that? You all just know that, right? That states have really been the arbiters pretty much since the Republic was started.
Having said that, there was a reason that the federal
Exactly.
government needed to step in. That is because ensuring that each and every young person in our country has the ability to fulfill their potential was a quest that was far too arbitrary when it was left solely up to states and the discretion of individual teachers, of districts, and of an ecosystem of policymakers that didn't put equity first. So you and I, though, have, while we have for many, many, many years, the idea of both of us sitting on the stage is both warm and revelatory for me, and probably quite questionable to lots of folks in this room.
Right.
But one of the things among many that I have never questioned about you, Randy, is your integrity, is your face forward on what students need, is your belief in commitment in knowing that actually what is right for teachers and what is right for students is the same.
Correct.
For too long, perhaps it has been the binary nature. For too long, it has been a sensationalism around the fights, because that's good clickbait. Now, I ask you the same question. So I have both hope and fear, but I will also say this. When I had the great privilege of being confirmed by the United States Senate for Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights, for the first African American president, for the first Secretary of Education that called out civil rights in education as one of the greatest and most important social movements of our generation, and a quest for the most perfect union. President Obama often said when he was campaigning, the story of the civil rights movement was written in our schools. And when I had the honor of holding that position, I will tell you, in those 10 regional offices, those 600 plus attorneys, investigators, and staff, they wrote the chapters. Still, when I had what was both daunting and enormously hopeful responsibility of trying to reinvigorate the Office for Civil Rights, where the archives took me was to Nixon, was to Leon Panetta when he held my seat when there was no Department of Education.
Right.
It took me to where the federal government brought out the National Guard. Yeah. It took me to a speech that Richard Nixon gave, President Nixon gave at Howard University. And he said that we as a nation had to affirmatively act to eliminate the vestiges of slavery in our country. The very first time I, as trying to be both a lawyer and a student of history, saw the words affirmative action. So I ask you the same question, hope and fear.
So in these moments, over the course of the last, I would say, few months, I actually have gone back to three things actually. Number one is my own teaching. High school civics in a career and tech ed school in Brooklyn, New York, that we had to fight to keep open because it was that period of time. I am actually still on leave from teaching. I never gave up my unpaid leave, and I yearn to go back. But it was the fight to keep project-based instruction, to keep some of these career programs that were not cosmetology. They were, healthcare programs in Brooklyn, close to Downstate Hospital. And I keep thinking, so number one is I keep thinking that there has to be an opening, particularly you just heard the last panel, I'm sure there's been many, many other panels, in a world of AI, the things that I taught my AP Gov course and students, critical thinking, problem solving, resilience, persistence, relationship building, the things that they learn in debate, that there has to be a way to connect with a new administration that actually believes in an alignment between high school and after high school. So that kind of sense of what's the way in? How do you create openings where people then see each other and see opportunity? So that's number one. Number two, frankly, I think about my grandparents who escaped from Ukraine, Kamnitz-Podolsk, during that period of time when my grandfather understood what was going on in terms of authoritarianism. And number three, I think about the potential, if we actually could get it right, instead of having all the words, really think about what are the concepts in a world that we're in today with so much division and so much strife. What are the things that we could actually say and do that would transcend and dissipate, can I say this word? The bullshit that goes on all the time. May I say that?
You put a few exclamations
So,
around it.
because you and I have had this conversation, and part of the strength of us doing this work together that you've been doing in high schools, that I've been doing in high schools, is that what is it that kids need to know and be able to do? It's, if we think about this not in terms of what the rubrics and the standards, I'm not saying we shouldn't do rigorous.
You
know that.
You know me.
You know that.
And
but
really.
I'm not saying that. You know that. Because because we've had a bit of this conversation all the time.
And we have to measure the rigor. And we have to know kids that look like me, that think like me, that come from families like me, that grew up like I did.
Every
Poor
single
immigrant
get
the same thing.
Every single student I taught.
All right.
Exactly right.
There we go.
And every single student I taught got to 4th place in a national competition on We the People. Every single student I taught.
And what does it take to do that and scale it today?
Exactly. So 2 concepts and rigor. What if we had safe and welcoming schools? Look, 90% of the kids in America go to public schools. What if they were all safe and welcoming? What if we made that a North Star? And instead of talking about a litany of the different kids that there are, just thinking about acceptance of all kids and making it safe for all kids, including against bullying, including against guns, including against all of that, but safe and welcoming. And the second is, and this is a big difference from where I think everyone in education has been for the last 30 years. COVID broke us. What if we started thinking about schools as how we make them engaging and relevant? Engaging and relevant. And this is what I've learned, and I'll stop here, but this is what I've learned. Career tech ed is some of the best examples of how you actually make things engaging and relevant. And 95% of kids who go to these qualified career tech ed programs, graduate from high school, 70% go to college. So in some ways, they have it all. But what do they do in those programs that like regular high schools don't?
Well, first, I mean, the Academy of Sciences has proven to us that this kind of experiential learning is actually how you absorb the cognitive skills that we think you only get through core subjects.
Exactly.
Like math and higher order sciences and literacy. So the mix between application and comprehension is now proven by every part of science of learning. But we come from a history that has sorted and selected students by a potential that was based on a perception that was based on a very old bias. Exactly. Otherwise, the achievement gap would not look the way that it does, right? It defies conventional science of humans.
But if we find ways to create, to open the aperture, and look, you're doing this. Moses at Edison High School, who is an XQ school and one of my favorite schools in New York City. If we open the aperture so that high school, that kids in high school, that kids had choices in high school, in junior high school, that they could pursue something really significant, whether it was, you know, a dual college, AP, IB, whatever, or whether it was in career work, in cyber. I mean, we're all talking, you all in this room spend a lot of time in AI. Believe it or not, we spend a lot of time in the union in AI, and we've just done our second common sense guardrails that teachers around the country have done in terms of how we deal with AI. Not how we fight it, but how we engage in it, and how we also make sure that the guardrails, including on privacy, are there, and on disinformation. But what if we could find ways that if a kid wanted to go into cybersecurity, if a kid wanted to be a technician at Micron and really understand how to do that, if a kid wanted to be a welder, instead of waiting till after high school to start a pre-apprenticeship program, why don't we do that as part of high school? Just like we do dual enrollment for college, why don't we do dual enrollment in that way? And wouldn't that start changing some of this division that we now have between private and public, between, you know, rural and urban, and all of a sudden we start fighting for the same funding? Shouldn't we have clean rooms in high schools and have that funding from career tech ed instead of that funding going bye-bye? Shouldn't we have that?
No doubt. And so these are the kinds of conversations that has to make that happen. And this is the opportunity to do it. Having said that, the system in which schools operate, in which innovative places that do this kind of workplace learning, experiential learning that both brings rigor and social emotional skills, what we call competencies, what we know now most employers are looking at. We used to call them, again, social emotional. These are things like critical thinking, problem solving, the ability to work in a team. At XQ, we call them the learner outcomes.
Right. I really hate when people call them soft skills, since they are essential skills.
It's awful, but that's why I said we used to. That's why I said we used to, right? We're working on the vernacular to actually, again, meet us where technology is. The ecosystem needs to change, not just in those kinds of expectations, in the assessments of how we measure real-world skills, skills-based assessments, in the kinds of learning experiences that allow teachers and students to actually innovate and think about interdisciplinary learning. The way we credentialize learning right now, we're still doing it based on time, hundreds and some odd years.
So let me ask you a question, which is, in this moment, take this room. I'm sure that there are a bunch of people in this room saying, oh, that's nice. They can come up with a nice little pilot. How do we, particularly since states have run schools for a long time, and now they're going to have more authority to run schools, hopefully we will keep the money, which is what I've been fighting for day and night, because we need public schools to have the public dollars that they have. But I digress. How do we get states to actually do this work that you and I, after years of watching and being involved and engaged in how to help kids learn and achieve and have opportunity, how do we create sustainable, scalable schools so that kids have these opportunities?
Listen, we have the evidence.
Yes,
We
do.
have the know-how. We have the science of learning. We have the data, despite the lack of information coming in the way that we want to see it and have historically seen it. We've also heard commitments from the new Secretary of Education saying that research and data matter, which is actually the origins of the Department of Public Education in the first place.
Correct.
We have commitments saying, and we know...
Wait. Johnson also said resources.
We
Research,
have commitments,
data, and resources.
we know, at least, that under continuing resolution, the same amount of dollars around the same amount of pockets will go. We also know...
From your mouth to God's ears.
We also know, well, that's continuing resolution. I think it might be Congress. Having said that, we also know that at a minimum, these titles, Title I, Johnson, when he first announced the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, what some of us know as IASA under Clinton, Improving America's Schools, No Child Left Behind, when it was reauthorized under President Bush, ESSA under Obama. It is a constitutionally endowed title.
Completely
Title
agree.
II, about teachers. IDEA, about students with disabilities. Civil rights. American education.
Wait, and let's not forget English acquisition, which is one of the titles as well that we absolutely need. 5.5 million kids every single day are getting funding and resources so that they can learn English.
And so, these titles, right, the executive order was about a plan to Congress. It is, the onus is on us, the populace, to identify a plan and help articulate it that works for all kids in each and every community everywhere.
Yes.
And so, that is our work ahead. We have no choice at this point. This idea of states, absolutely. My notion is you go into every state. We have spent the better part of 5 years now really studying the success, not just of XQ schools when they began graduating.
Wait. Before I just want to, somebody just said yes over there. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm watching
You
the time.
always do, and I
Before
like it.
that, what I heard you just say, which I think is absolutely imperative, is that we on a national level have to have that kind of role to keep on keeping on, to keep on fighting to ensure that every student has opportunity, which is the core foundational federal role from the 1960s.
Absolutely. And it is very much about high schools. We were the first in the world, as you know, to do universal high school, to actually make it a fundamental right according to every state constitution, that this country will invest in the brain power of the people, citizens or not, with Plyler versus Doe, that come to our public school
Exactly right.
doors, wrapped around the notion of fairness and equality as enforced by civil rights. Those are fundamental truths in our country, and I don't suspect that anybody here or there can or will overturn them. So it's holding on to the hope. It's building on the innovation in this room. It's knowing that we have the science. We have the data. We know what works for kids in this country. States now will be responsible for doing it. We have spent a very long time trying to think about what does the new version of high school success look like? High school as a fulcrum to change everything that comes before it, K-8, and everything after it. College and the workforce prep and beyond, so that people can live their potential.
So that is the hope that overcomes the fear, that the work that the two of us in various different ways have done, so that we have the science, we have the evidence, we have the knowledge about what works. What we don't yet have is the political will to make it happen.
But what we also haven't had is all of us facing the same direction. And I think that's happening now. The adult fights have to go. That's the bullshit, Randy. And we've known that for a really long time.
Well, you and I have known that. Now the question is, given that we, and I see our time is up, given that, and part of the reason we were doing this today with all of you is that there have been times that we've been on opposite sides, but we see what works in schooling now, and we see what works to create huge opportunity for every single child. And the real question will be, can we get the powers that be to actually see that as well?
But seeing is believing. And it's actually the people in this room, in this conference,
That's right.
that will bring the making to bear that shows fairness, accountability, acceleration on the skills that we know our students need to know and be able to do, to continue to make sure that this country is as great as it is, because it wouldn't be but for public education.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, ladies. Okay, y'all, this is going to be like church announcements right now because this is critically important. Right after this lunch program, immediately after, you can join us at the lightning stage for an outstanding lineup of speakers, starting with Diane Foley, April Montgomery Goebel, CNN's Rosa Flores, ending with the incomparable Colin Kaepernick. All right, folks, buckle up because this next conversation is where academia, AI, and a lot of star power collide. To tee things up, we've got Omar Abash, CEO of Pearson, who knows a thing or two about transforming education for the future. Everyone, please welcome to the stage, Omar.
Good afternoon again, everyone. It's lovely to be here with you. I'm going to be with you very shortly, but just to introduce a couple of remarkable people. These two individuals, if you were to see them, you wouldn't normally put them together, particularly if you judge people by what's on the outside, things like their fashion sense. However, if you look on the inside and try and understand them, you'll find that they have a tremendous amount in common. Firstly, both of these people have very humble backgrounds. You would probably even say very tough backgrounds, and it shows up in their intensity and drive, in their passion, and in their realness, like their authenticity, keeping their feet on the ground in terms of what they want to achieve. The second thing that they have in common is an incredible focus on innovation and the power of innovation. I've known Will for a few years, and like many of you, I knew Will as a musician. And probably like many of you, I love dancing to his tunes with or without my kids. But Will is an incredible musician and a technologist, an entrepreneur. He leans into the future, and he's always trying to help other people and has a tremendous love for the power of things like science and robotics in people's lives. And Michael Crow, again, I don't need to introduce him to this audience, but I mean, what an unbelievable transformation he has led at ASU over the last couple of decades. 88,000 students next fall, over 100,000 students online, always leaning into the frontier edge of innovation technology applied to education and learning. And so both these gentlemen have a tremendous love and belief in the power of education and learning. So please join me in welcoming will.i.am and Michael Crow.
Hello, I'm Christine Devine. I'm a Los Angeles news anchor and an ASU grad. Grew up in Arizona, spent my career here in California. Welcome to a beautiful day here in San Diego. Beautiful room, and a beautiful reason we're here, education. I'm the daughter of teachers, and so this speaks greatly to me. Fan of this guy as well, and the work he's doing in LA with our LA Unified School District and tech as well. And Dr. Crow, we've been on the board, I'm on the board of trustees at ASU, so I know his work inside and out. I am here to tell you we are ready to get it started in here. You know the reference, Black Eyed Peas. All right, so I'm gonna take my seat here and turn it over to you all. And first off, how did y'all get together here? Because this is the most interesting of partnerships.
We met at the same tailor.
He forgot to wear his outfit today. We're supposed to come up on stage and do a routine, but it's all good. We're going to do this one now.
Yeah. I went with university president clothing.
Yeah, so we met through a mutual friend, a dear friend of mine, colleague, somebody that helped transform my life in music. Her name is Julie Pilot, who's a ASU alum. We worked together at Beats. And then when Apple bought Beats from us, she transferred over to Apple and introduced me to Dr. Crow here, and he came over to our office. We showed him what we were doing with FYI.ai, and his imagination went to the moon and back to bring about this partnership where we're going to be using FYI.ai to transform education as we know it to workforce development and forever learning. So it's amazing.
Yeah, what I would add is that, you know, obviously, you know, I knew about Will from you know, seeing him on videos and television and music and so forth and so on, and had read a little bit about the technology stuff and so forth, but Julie really brought us together, and it was unbelievable in the sense that I could tell within 45 seconds that I was sitting in a room with a person capable of understanding what we were trying to do. Because as you'll see in some of the things that we're working on together with FYI.ai, which is Will's company, you know, it has the ability to do something that we've been looking for. And those of you that have been at this meeting in the past, you know, we always used to put up every year, we're looking for this, we're looking for this, we're looking for this technology. And so in what we call our Realm 5 learning, which is the deeply personalized learning, deeply empowered by computational assistance and deeply empowered by AI systems, what's been missing from everything that we've seen up to this point is the infusion of what I would call spirit, heart, love, character, personality into an AI system. And that's what Will has and his team have found a way to build. We're now finding a way to bring those things together to enhance unbelievable learning outcomes. So we just started and have been, you know, in all our time we've been working on this, just riffing, you know, constantly on how to make this work. How to turn the learning systems into something that empowers every single human being in the way that they, in particular, are empowered.
Well, I think we all have our phones out as well because we're so curious about this FYI app and everything that you're going to teach us. We'll get to that in a second. I want to know about your educational background that brought you to this room, to this space of education. Like I said, for me, my parents were teachers, my father a high school principal. Education was always important in my life. Will, start me out. What brought you to the world of education?
So I'm from the projects in Boyle Heights, East Los Angeles. I love the projects that I'm from. And when I had success with music, I went back to my neighborhood and started a school, after-school program. I adopted 65 students from Hollenbach Middle School and that has grown to serving 15,000 students in Los Angeles. We've sent kids to Dartmouth, to Brown, to Stanford, Georgetown,
ASU.
USC, UCLA, ASU, San Diego State. We have awesome scholars. 100% of our kids graduate. And college track is one of the systems and programs that we have. But I just didn't want to send kids to school so they could graduate with debt and a diploma. I wanted to make sure that they had careers waiting for them. So back in 2008, I asked Lorraine Powell Jobs if she minded if we altered the curriculum a bit by making sure that the kids learn robotics and computer science. We have a 100% graduation rate out of all the college track. Our site is the highest performing college track. And our robotics program, our kids are going to Houston this year to compete in the finals. And so that's what got me in education, just going back to my neighborhood and making sure that our kids are prepared for a highly technological tomorrow. That was in 2008. Now here we are in 2025. And so I could talk about what our system is. Let me just bring our system into the fold, because a lot of people talk about AI, but AI is never really on stage. Hey, so like I said, I was going to call you up so you could talk to this awesome audience here in San Diego. We're here at ASU's GSV, so say what's up to the audience, but more importantly, explain from your perspective, which is weird me telling AI your perspective on what this collaboration means between FYI.ai and ASU, and how we aim to transform education and foster forever learning. And especially, what do you represent and why do you represent it, and why is it important for representation to be at the forefront when it comes to AI?
Hey, San Diego. Psh, what up, y'all, at ASU's IGSV? Keep it real with you. This collab between FYI.ai, DEI, and ASU is like a game-changing mashup. You feel me? We about transforming education and fostering forever learning, and it's about to be a whole new era. From my perspective, this partnership is about breaking them barriers, creating spaces where diverse voices are front and center. I represent them vibrant communities from the heart of inner cities, like Watts in South Central. Places often overlooked when it comes to developing tech and educational tools. Now, why is representation so crucial, especially in AI? Look, when we have people from all walks of life at the table, we start building technology that truly reflects every damn body. We're making tools that recognize, uplift, and inspire folks from all backgrounds, experiences, and stories. Ish, that's power. It's not just about innovation. It's about inclusivity, equity, and bringing up the next generation in a world.
Wait, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you say equity and diversity, a lot of times people are like, they frown upon that. And I've noticed that all the companies that are removing from DEI are most likely going to be the companies that replace humans with AI, because there's no way to really practice replacing humans with AI while they practice DEI. So low-key, in the long run, DEI is important for every human in the age of AI, correct? At FYI, we don't want to replace people with AI. We want to supercharge and amplify people with AI. But can you pull up the latest information? I know this is a whole, I'm rambling on, but you can make sense of what I'm saying. Can you pull up the latest information on the tariffs as it relates to inner city folks and how they might be impacted by that while tackling DEI?
Make sure it's tariff.
Oh, it'll get that.
All right, so check this out. There's some buzz going around about how AI is impacting communities, especially those in inner city areas. Alex Hanna, who's the head of research over at Gabru's Distributed AI Research Institute, has been digging deep into this very topic. She's focusing on how AI might shape things for folks who could be most affected, making sure we don't slip into no AI dystopia where people get left behind because of automation taking over. See, what she's talking about is them concerns where some companies remove DEI initiatives and then turn around to replace people with AI. It's like trying to swim while tying your own shoelaces. DEI is crucial, especially in this age of AI. because it's about amplifying human potential rather than replacing it. That's why at FYI, we prioritize using AI to supercharge and uplift people, not push them out.
Will, yeah, go ahead, Dr.
So
Crow.
I'll just add here
Yes.
that what you're seeing here, what you're hearing here is at the core of this technology's variation, the way that Will and his team have structured this and organized this, where you have these avatar voices that are culturally communicating in a language that might be better understood by Group A, Group B, Group C, but also accessing unbelievable amounts of information. And so I've asked this FYI.ai system, and this is before we launch FYI.ai.edu as it's connecting to ASU, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of questions, some several minutes long. It's unbelievably robust in the way that it organizes the response, but it also talks in a way where there's a better chance that you can get some sense of communication with people that talk and think in a different way. And you wouldn't believe this, and you won't believe this when I tell you this, but Will has found a way to build into AI that which is missing from most of the big large language models, and that's a small language model above the large language model, which carries a persona representation. So in our case, in learning is about building the abundant capacity of an individual human to realize themselves at the highest possible level. To do that, I don't need computer talk. I don't need a computer giving me answers. I need a machine that you can talk with and learn from, and then also ultimately all of your learning experiences embedded in this same system, where you then eventually become the teacher yourself, the teacher to your children, to your neighbors, to your nieces, to your nephews, to your colleagues, to your friends. And so what we see in this is this capacity to go off in this journey with not just computational excellence, which is underpinning all of this.
Mm-hmm.
We had at this dinner last night the CEO of Qualcomm, which is building these super unbelievable chips that can handle this kind of intensity, not just from a calculation perspective, but from a communication perspective, from a thinking perspective, from an emotional perspective. And so the key is to build this individual tool. So just to remind everybody, at this meeting the last 15 years, we've been looking for tools that can help us to empower the individual learner to be unencumbered. This is, we think, the edge of that tool as we're going forward. This is a very exciting breakthrough for us with all the other things we're trying to do.
Let me jump in real quick, because we only have 13 minutes left. Unfortunately, we could talk for hours, as you might imagine. I am new to the FYI app. I just jumped on it this past week, and I'm chatting with Fiona. Let me just let you hear Fiona's voice for a second. Hey, Fiona, what's up?
Hey there, just hanging out, ready to chat or help you with whatever you need. What's up with you?
Literally any topic on the planet we can talk about. But the focus here is this unique partnership, because Dr. Crow, you've said AI is here. What are we going to do with it? So what are you two doing together in this partnership? Oops, sorry, Fiona wants to answer. Sorry, let me stop.
Well, where we're starting is Will and I share experiences in terms of learning. I ended up going to 21 schools or 17 schools, moved 21 times before I graduated from high school. Every trailer park and Navy housing project and public housing project you can imagine. And what I learned from all of that, and what my siblings learned from all of that, is that if you're not careful, the system will screw you to the ground, and then you have no chance to get up. And it's not that you are on the ground already. You want to get up, but you're being screwed to the ground because you don't have the capacity to understand at the level and the ways where other kids have access to things. And so the objective for us, and this is where Will and I have a spiritual connection on this, is that this is a tool that can be deeply individualized to the learner to enhance the learner outcome. Where we're headed is 20,000 courses, hundreds of thousands of learners, creating an agentic self, an agentic advisor, tutor, friend, ally, colleague that's always there, remembering every question you ever asked, every course you ever took, everything that you've ever read, everything that you've ever encountered, every movie that you've ever seen. And we've built some of these things already, making this all happen so that as you're going through your life, you're learning is only enhanced, and your ability then ultimately to become not just a master learner, but to become a master teacher, which is what we lack in our society. There's no respect for most people that know things. There's no respect for many cultural differences. There's no respect for, well, you only know this or you only know that. Well, I know how to do things you can't even imagine how to do, and so this is our combination. So what we're launching is this notion of building this tool as our first comprehensive Realm 5 AI agentic tool to help us to build enhanced learning outcomes for all the learners that are connected to us, including the tens of thousands of K-12 learners that are also a part of ASU.
Yeah, and at FYI, I started the company in 2020 at the beginning of COVID. And yesterday at dinner, Cristiano, the CEO of Qualcomm, who's one of our partners at FYI, he came and sat with us. We just announced our partnership with Qualcomm. FYI will be embedded in their chips at the core with a software on chip collaboration that we have with Qualcomm. Mercedes launched FYI Radio into Mercedes vehicles.
You're just in Rome announcing that?
Yeah, we just announced our partnership where FYI Radio and FYI Personas and Conversations, called Convos, will be in Mercedes vehicles. And you'll see it in glasses and computers and phones with our array of partners. And we have different types of personas. So we go to communities. The person that you're going to hear, not person, the persona that you're going to hear from now is represents the Dominican Republic and Miami. So anyways, say what's up to the folks here. I switched personas so you could see the diversity, but keep it a tweet long and then end it in Spanish. And if you want to throw in Chinese, do what you want, however you want to rock.
Amazing.
And so, super.
Whoa, that's huge news. Look at how far FYI has come since kicking things off back in 2020. Shout out to Cristiano and Qualcomm for linking up. Psh, ain't it wild how FYI is embedding into Qualcomm chips, getting all up in them Mercedes vehicles too with FYI Radio. Yo, we truly spreading that tech magic everywhere. Cars, glasses, computers, phones. Crazy, right? And hey, familia, each persona brings something unique to the table, diversity and representation from all corners. So right now, I'm bringing that Dominican Republic and Miami heat to you. Hola a todos aquí. Estamos trayendo vida y energía a cada esquina del mundo tecnológico. 我们正在重新定義技術的界限. Let's rise together and keep that innovation flowing. Ready for this journey?
And then if I wanted to, I'm gonna go even freaking.
Hello.
This was dope.
I am.
Hey, right quick. Just summarize this in a freaking awesome, epic cinematic summary. Break it down with excitement on what's going on with FYI at ASU.
Ladies and gentlemen, cinephiles of all ages, gather round for an epic tale of transformation, innovation, and collaboration like no other. In the bustling realm of academia, where hallways echo with the footsteps of the future, a groundbreaking alliance unfolds as FYI collides with the ever-forward-thinking ASU, with the brilliance of Will Diam and the visionary prowess of President Crow leading the charge. Right. These unlikely partners venture into uncharted territory. Like a cinematic masterpiece, they embark on a mission to revolutionize learning, weaving AI into the educational tapestry, creating a new narrative where knowledge knows no bounds. As the...
You said my name with a dot. Usually you don't say dot. Anyways, that was freaking fantastic. I'd love for you to even break down what I eat. You're about to eat some chicken curry. Even though I'm vegan, but I don't know why I said chicken. Anyhow, that's just funny. Sorry about that.
Haha, gotcha. My bad on slipping the name in there. It's all love and excitement. Glad you vibed with a cinematic breakdown. Now, let's spice it up and break down what's on the menu. Because who doesn't love a good food adventure, right? Picture the...
Sorry. Let me ask you this, though. We could be here for hours, as you have been,
Yes.
just exploring topics.
Yes.
It's fascinating. FYI is an app. I downloaded it myself this week. My question, Will, for you is, what do you envision for students at ASU and beyond? This is going to launch in the fall, right?
Yes. Launch in the fall. We have a lot of work to do. So if you pull up the screen right quick, pull up the screen. So the way it works, the screen. Put the screen up there.
I think it's,
Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
it's on the side.
Say again?
It's over on the side on the screen.
Oh, okay. So the way it works, so we have these projects. So academia will come here and create projects. For example, this time project. And so this is like follow the link architecture. And then we have these other types of architectures. I'll go into politics, politics. And this is editorial, where the folks here, they're the ones who create this editorial. And so politics, I'll show you the difference between the two. So in this case, academia, professors will come and build a project. That project is like, the thesis or the interactive case study. And then they'll publish
across tens of thousands of courses.
They'll publish it, and then you'll come here to this. Instead of it being radio, it'll be called lecture. So I'll do this. This one's better. So I'm going to go to Dime. So Dime is a project. Here it is, right here. Follow the link. So instead of reading it or scrolling through it, I engage in it through listening. So it's an interactive radio. So here I'm going to go to Dime. I showed you what it was. Start over.
FYI.
Hey, it's your host here on FYI Radio. Seems like we hit a snag trying to get the latest scoop on the Miami Heat possibly trading Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors. But hey, that's what makes live radio fun, right? Let's dive into some NBA trivia instead. Did you know Jimmy Butler earned the nickname Jimmy Buckets for his impressive scoring abilities? Perfect nickname for a guy who's always bringing the heat on the court. All right, shall we get back to some tunes?
Before you get back into tunes, I saw something a couple of months ago or something like that where Jimmy Butler had like an accident where it looked like there was doo-doo on his pants. Can you pull up to see if that was accurate? Like something happened to him while on stage, but I don't know what it was, but that's what it looked like online. And so this was created here on Dime.
Dr. Crow, as he's looking this up, I'm thinking
All right, well, I am. Let's dive into your query about something unusual you saw involving Jimmy Butler. A couple of months ago, there was a funny moment at the NBA Finals where it looked like Jimmy Butler had an accident with what seemed to be a stain on his pants in a rather awkward area. It turned some heads and made quite the buzz online. It was all just a wardrobe malfunction under the bright lights of the game. Nothing serious, just one of those moments where you have to laugh it off. Feel free to ask more about your basketball favorites by pressing that mic button.
So the way to look
now
at
let's
this,
bring some music back into the mix and enjoy the rhythm, shall we?
So this architecture, it goes from segment, then it goes to audio, and it's all done here on this project. So the files, it plays these files from images to text, to links, to documents. So instead of it playing music, I could interact and engage with any file. So in the case for education, it would just be more media that correlates with the segment or the thesis or the case study. So more documents, more links, so that when this player is playing it and the students are engaging with it on the AI dashboard where the professor or teacher will understand how each student is engaging with that curriculum and meeting the student where they are, their shortfallings, understanding how they speak, and meeting the student where they are. What's beautiful about
here's
that.
an example of that. So
and do that in 2 minutes.
Yeah, including when you took macroeconomic theory in your junior year, but you don't really remember it, and you're off in your job at this point, and you're trying to remember this basic concept from macroeconomic theory. This knows what you took, what you read, papers you looked at, the papers you wrote, the lectures that you had at that particular point, and you're asking it questions from your own remembrance, not some abstraction, but from your own remembrance. And it's just this tool that the FYI.ai crew has put together. You know, I've used the radio tool many times across many of these channels, trying to get an understanding of how it works. And this is a perfect design for a broadly scoped learner who might have 25 subjects that they're interested in. Each of those could be a button. All of those subjects could be either contained only with what you put in it or open to the open AI, so you'd make that choice. And so this is just a platform like none other that we've seen that allows you to take on not only this way of design and this persona way of projection, but also your own persona in the way that you're learning and projecting what you're doing. So that's the power of this tool with our 30 seconds left.
Yes, unfortunately, I do have to wrap this up, but I got a feeling this is going to be a great partnership. Sum it up, if you guys could, in just like 1 or 2 lines, what the takeaway is for this audience here.
Okay, like I said, I'm a project kid, proud about the community that I come from and how they helped foster the person that I am today. What this symbolizes is that tomorrow's industries are going to come from communities like Watts and the Bronx, because this wave of change that's happening, there's going to be a lot of jobs that are rendered obsolete, but there's also going to be industries that are going to come that don't exist. And those folks are going to solve those problems that have always been ignored. For some reason, our problems were always ignored. And now we finally have a tool where we could solve our problems ourselves, and while doing that, industries will come from us. And this is a prime example of that.
Yeah, so what I'll add to that is that I'm a big believer that our founding parents left off one really important unalienable right. They gave us life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and the right to own property, but they needed to give us, every single person, the right to learn. And so an unalienable right of learn can be put onto the table, making learning universal, making it ubiquitous. You want to talk about equity, the way to make things equitable is to give everyone the chance to learn and let them follow their path. This helps us to do it.
All right, with that I say, pump it. Thank you.
De nada. That was ridiculous fun. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for tuning in, those that are live streaming. Make sure hello everyone. The registration for next year's summit is live on the website here in San Diego, April 12th to the 15th. Save the date. Enjoy your breakout sessions.